Oh, so that's what you want to talk about today? You want to talk about villains, huh? Well, we start off comic books or where? Some of my favorite villains besides comic books would be um, the classic movie villains. Classic movie villains are Freddy, Jason, and also Michael Myers from the Halloween franchise. Now, Freddy, Jason, and Michael Myers are the big three. Um, but then, when you get into, they're actually in comics. I have a Freddy comic, I have a Jason comic, and I don't have the Halloween comics, but I've seen them. So technically, they are comic books. But if we're gonna talk about villains, we have to cover all scope, like even the movie villains. So you got those three. Then you got Chucky. Then you have the guy from Jeepers Creepers. You have Candyman. You have the Phantasm. You know what I'm saying? So you have all these different type of movie villains, or horror film villains that definitely make up the pile. But definitely out of all of them, I've always been a bigger fan of Freddy. Um, I would say it goes Freddy, Mike Myers, then Jason. And I don't like how people try to pair Jason against Michael Myers because Michael Myers is somewhat supernatural, but Jason is definitely supernatural. So it's no contest at all. Jason would totally carve up Michael Myers. But yeah, those are some of the bad guys that I wanted to definitely talk about and get them out of the way before we dive deeply down that slope into comic book villains. So cool. All right, let's get into my favorite villain of all time. Okay, now my favorite villain of all time falls in Batman's Rogue Gallery. It's the Joker. And let's do the timeline of the Jokers that I like. Uh, of course, you had Saturday morning cartoons where you had uh, Superman and Super Friends or something like that, or you had Super Friends, I think it was called. Um, but then you had the Batman with Adam West, 1967. I think it's Batman 67. Or is it Batman 76? It's one of them. But anyway, you had that Joker who, the guy who was an actor, I forget his name. I'm probably going to put his name in the text, but he refused to shave his mustache and he just put the Joker paint over it. So early on, I was introduced to Batman's Rogue Gallery, which is, I don't consider Catwoman a villain, but Catwoman, um, Mr. Freeze, definitely the Riddler, and the Joker. That was pretty cool. So Batman's Rogue Gallery has my favorite villain of all time, which is the Joker. So first Joker I saw, Batman, Adam West, and then you go to Batman 1989. Yeah, Tim Burton's Batman, where you have Jack Nicholson's Joker. Now that Joker is just the most gangsterous Joker of all time. That's the Joker that totally blew my mind away and just made me like huge Joker fan. Batman 1989 Joker, definitely got to take my hat off to what's his name? Good God, Jack Nicholson. Got to give it up to Jack Nicholson. 'Cause Jack Nicholson put stuff in his contract to play Joker. They wanted him to play Joker so bad. He put stuff in his contract that they absolutely had to give him, like private plane to the set. And also, too, if you watch the movie and you watch his best friend, who's with him the whole movie, Bob, who he kills at the end when Batman stops his parade, is actually one of Jack Nicholson's best friends in real life. So he wrote him into the movie, and you never saw him in another movie again. So I thought that was pretty cool. But definitely the next rendition of Joker that cemented him as my favorite was the Tim Burton movies. So after the Tim Burton movies, you roll around, and 2 years later they released Batman animated series, which totally gave me all his rogues gallery. It gave me Bane for the first time that I never knew about. It gave me Killer Croc for the first time I never knew about. Man Bat, I never knew about Man Bat. And then it introduced one of my favorite of all time, which is Harley Quinn. I don't know too many people that collect comic books that don't like Harley Quinn or Deadpool. Her and Deadpool made the biggest splash in the modern age as far as new superheroes. Or Harley Quinn is not quite a superhero. Deadpool is not quite a superhero. They're anti-villains or anti-heroes. Um, so her and Deadpool kind of simultaneously made a splash. She was in the Batman animated series, Deadpool, and New Mutants '98. So I thought that was pretty cool. So, like I said, Batman the animated series, uh, Mark Hamill's Joker, one of the most classic Jokers of all time. People always bring up the on-screen or the big screen, which is movie version of the Jokers, but they fail to mention Mark Hamill's Joker, which is the most classic and defined Joker that we got of our generation. You know what I'm saying? Our generation's Joker is basically piggybacks off of Mark Hamill's Joker, even before Heath Ledger. Not to get ahead of myself, but we have to give it up for Mark Hamill and the stuff that he pulled off. And Mark Hamill, everybody knows, is Luke Skywalker from the Star Wars franchise, but he also voiced the Joker. And he went on to do, I think it was the Trapster in DC's show, The Flash. I'm almost sure he was a Trapster or something like that. But Mark Hamill Joker is iconic, iconic, because Batman the animated series brought that Dark Knight back. It brought him back to his roots because I found out when Tim Burton was making the movie that they actually wanted Eddie Murphy to play Robin. And Tim Burton lobbied very hard to have a darker movie. And we wouldn't have that Batman now. You know what I'm saying? We would have campy Batman if that movie would have came out with like Eddie Murphy and somebody else playing Batman. They got their way later on. They wanted to make him more family friendly. So after Batman Returns, the movie sucked. But Mark Hamill and Batman the Animated Series with Paul Dini actually brought us all the way back to the classic Batman, which is the brooding, big uh, hunk of a man, almost like just mean like Wolverine. That's why him and Wolverine are my favorite characters. So definitely got to give it up for Mark Hamill's Joker. Wow, so you asked me that question. Who's my favorite X-Men villain? Well, we all know that documented is Apocalypse. Apocalypse um, is the best villain. I would say Magneto, but Magneto is more of a anti-hero or anti-villain. He goes back and forth. See, I grew up with the classic Magneto, but then he turned into, a Magneto that changed his life around. So I grew up with that Magneto too. So it's hard for me to really say Magneto is a villain, but definitely Apocalypse. And so Apocalypse, Magneto. Of course, you have Omega Red, who Jim Lee introduced, and then you have one of my favorite X Men villains also too is Strife. Now, Strife. Let's look at a picture of Strife before I go on. Now, the interesting story about Strife is that him and Cable are connected. You can't have Strife without Cable. You can't have Cable without Strife. So Mr. Sinister was working for Apocalypse. Apocalypse gave him, mutant powers. We all know that Mr. Sinister was a human at first, but Apocalypse had the power to give him mutant powers. So Mr. Sinister wanted to rebel against Apocalypse, and what did he do? He wanted to create the perfect mutant. The perfect mutant would be Scott Summers, which is Cyclops, mating with Jean Grey, and he almost had it. But then Jean turned to the Dark Phoenix, and she supposedly died, but we found out she was in a cocoon in Jamaica Bay. So he creates this clone called Madeline Pryor, which is right here. This is Madeline Pryor. right? So this is Cable's actual mom, you know, the Goblin Queen. So he creates a clone of Jean Grey, and they mate, and they have Cable. So them knowing that Cable wanted to, that Apocalypse wanted to put his body into Cable because Cable was one of the most powerfulest mutants, they sent Cable into the future. When they sent Cable into the future, Apocalypse affected him with the techno-organic virus. But before he could do that, they cloned Cable, you know, just in case if Cable didn't make it, they can, you know, have a different body. Or in case of Apocalypse wanted to kidnap Cable, that he would kidnap the clone. So that's how Strife was born. Strife is a total direct clone of Cable. But Strife is Cable without the techno-organic virus. So he's 10 times stronger than any mutant that, I mean, he's an Omega level mutant. Strife has done, I've seen Strife take on all the X-Men by himself and still come out ahead. Like, I've seen him fight, one of my favorite comic books is called X-Force Cable, the Messiah War, where he takes on X-Force, which is Wolverine, Warpath, Wolfsbane, X-23, and Domino. He takes on Cable. Hope Summers is a baby. And he also takes on Deadpool. Strife did all that by himself and still was going to come out on top. But he ended up losing because I think something happened. But obviously he was, you know, he gave him a run for their money. They couldn't touch him. So Strife is one of my favorite characters because of his past and, you know, his daddy issues with Apocalypse. So Strife is just another Cable. So another one of my favorite X-Men villains would definitely, like I said, you have Omega Red, and then you have a guy called Exodus. Now Exodus is an old mutant. He's almost like Strife as far as he can do whatever he wants to do. So the X-Men is you know stuck when they're dealing with him. I forget his real name, but it's a French name. But yeah, Exodus is a pretty cool character. Let me show you a picture of him. You ready? All right, let's do this. Yeah, so Exodus' name is Bennett Du Petty, and he first appeared in X Factor number 92, 1993. X Factor number 1992, 1993. Now, the thing I like about Exodus is that he has all these great powers, but he also has a power of immortality. So he's not a um, he's basically like in the class with Celine, the Black Queen from the Hellfire Club. And I don't want to get too much into the X Men villains, but those are definitely two that I want to talk about. I definitely want to talk about Exodus, and I definitely want to talk about Strife because those two stick out to me as far as being just extremely powerful X Men villains. But we're going to do videos where we're going to do X Men villains, Superman villains, Batman villains. You know, we're just going to break down categories so we can keep going. But definitely want to talk about Exodus. Now, I want to segue into some of my favorite villains growing up. Definitely a big gamer. When I was growing up, I kind of got away from it. But you got characters that's like, you know, I just wanted to give honorable mentions to characters like Scorpion and Sub Zero from Mortal Kombat, as well as major characters from the Street Fighter franchise or bad guys from the Street Fighter franchise. Um, Definitely want to go with Akuma. I have two friends that's over the top, obsessed with Akuma. And one of my friends actually told me to look up the real story behind Akuma. A real story, real life story. There was a real life guy who trained in the dark kind of magic of karate, or however you want to say. But he went around in, it was either China or Japan, I'm not sure. But he went around challenging these people. There's actually uh, he's actually Akuma is actually based off of a real person, which is absolutely mind blowing and cool. So you got him, you got Major Bison, and you also have Saget or Saget. from the Street Fighter. So those are some honorable mentions that I wanted to do as far as bad guys or super villains. I wanted to name this video "Say Hello to the Bad Guy" after Scott Hall, but I just say I'm gonna just keep it normal and just do like top villains, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, definitely Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, man. Those, Scorpion and Sub Zero, and then you have, like I said, yeah, Major Bison, Sagat, and Akuma. So eventually, I'm going to do a video on Saturday morning cartoons, kind of similar to this. But some honorable mentions in the cartoon universe would be definitely Cobra Commander, Lord Megatron. Who doesn't love Megatron? Skeletor from He-Man. How can you ever forget Skeletor? Matter of fact, he's right behind you. That so was it 6 inch? No, 10 inch Funko Pop. So definitely love Skeletor. Yeah. You want to do sci-fi villains now? Well, one of my favorite sci-fi villains of all time would be the Predator from the Predator franchise. Um, the Yachters. Uh, one of my favorite, one of that alien race is Wolf from Aliens versus Predator Requiem, because Wolf was very identifiable because on his mandibles he was missing like one at the top, I think, and Wolf was so bad ass that they allowed him to come down here and clean up, um, or to get the quarantine together. And it was just one of them. He wasn't with a clan. He wasn't, I guess his clan was the ones that, dropped the guys off, that dropped the predators off in Aliens versus Predator. But Wolf actually went by himself and cleaned up a whole city that was overran by aliens. Now, that's one badass predator. If he can, one predator could go through and just clean up a town. But out of all the Yachters, I gotta say him. Of course, the City Hunter from Danny Glover's movie, which is Predator 2. And my favorite Yachter of all time, but even before Wolf, is the first one that I seen that battled Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in the first Predator movie. Now, that one was pretty cool. He's called the Jungle Hunter Predator. But definitely always been a huge fan of the Predator franchise. And then when you go from Predator, you also got to give it goes hand in hand, Aliens, Ripley Scott, or Scott Ripley, whatever. Uh, or Ridley Scott, I forget. But anyway, the Alien franchise is pretty cool. They're the Xenomorphs. That's their race name. The Xenomorphs are freaking. I mean, they've wreaked havoc on sci-fi fans for years, and I just really have a respect for the Aliens franchise. But when you pair the two, I always thought Predator came out a little bit ahead as far as what I like. I definitely love the Predators. Always been called one because of my hair, but definitely Aliens and Predators are two of my favorite sci-fi villains of all time. So there you go as far as sci-fi. So, man, y'all just don't understand how much fun I do. I love these type of videos where, I got a friend off camera who asks me questions and I answer them. I love these type of videos, and I want to do more of them. The first one was the comic book documentary, and this one is probably going to be like greatest villains or top villains. But I definitely want to keep doing these videos because I think it's more positive when we actually get into each other's minds and we figure out how we all kind of click, and we all kind of think the same within the comic book community, or you get a different perspective from somebody else on a character. So this one is just part one because we have plenty of other characters we want to talk about. I want to talk about Boba Fett. I want to talk about uh, Ventress from the Star Wars universe. I want to talk about more DC villains like Solomon Grundy. You know, yeah, let's just keep going. You gotta stay positive and stay focused, and definitely your channels will grow. I pray blessings over you and your children. Even if you don't have children, I pray blessings over your life, and everything that you touch will be successful. We're gonna make it together. Keep a positive attitude, man. It's easy to be down. That's the way of the world. The world wants to make you down. But I believe that you guys can achieve anything that you put your heart into, no matter your upbringing or no matter what anybody ever said to you. You are the most important thing right now living on this planet, and you need to realize that, and you need to tap into what makes your natural talent. That's not work, you know? Your natural talent will be work to other people, but it comes easy to you. Mine is basically cooking and comic books. I love cooking and comic books. There's nothing more that I love more than that. But the channel's Fred Hall Direct Edition, and I'm outie. Peace. Peace, brothers and sisters.